Hi everyone. Tonight we're going to learn all about Victorian parenting. It was a strange, strict, and sticky place. If you did anything wrong there, you would either get locked up or visit from Child Protective Services. If you've ever thought about what it was like to raise kids when teething was treated with whiskey and discipline, and sometimes a wooden spoon was used, then this one's for you. Before you get too comfortable, please like the video and subscribe, but only if you enjoy it. Leave a comment to tell me where you're listening from, and if your childhood ever involved cod liver oil, cold sponge baths, or a distant relative who believed in leeches. I read them all, mostly because I can't sleep either. Now, turn the lights down low, put on a fan for some soft background noise, and get comfy. Maybe wrap up warm. Victorian parents would probably have insisted on 3 layers of clothing, no matter what the season, just in case it got cold. But let's stop and think for a moment. Did Victorian mums really put their babies in cages outside their apartment windows? What did the kids eat? And why was it often gray? Is the saying, children should be seen and not heard, a real law? How many people died accidentally after touching household poisons before someone invented childproof caps? And why was go play with the arsenic not followed immediately by no, seriously don't? Well done. You have just woken up in the year 1885 in the middle of Victorian London. You're 8 years old. Your nanny has a mustache, and your mother is giving you something called soothing syrup. Good luck. Step inside the Victorian nursery, a room full of more rules, bows, and bells than toys. The wallpaper is peeling in pink and green, and every surface is slightly sticky with an unknown substance that could be porridge or possibly the family cat. The air smells a bit of boiled milk, old dolls, and a disinfectant that probably does more harm than good. It's early morning and the sun struggles to get through the thick curtains, which are trimmed with a level of lace usually reserved for wedding cakes. You're still half asleep and you're already being judged, first by your nanny, then by a bunch of old relatives who come and mostly tell you how to sit and stand and give you their opinion on your crutches. The floor is covered in alphabet blocks, marbles, and bits of dry bread, which are a health hazard. You shiver, not just because it's cold, but because you know that everything you do is controlled by a secret list of Victorian nursery rules that nobody talks about. The most important thing is to never walk. Be careful. Secondly, toys are for looking at, not touching, unless you're showing someone how to hold a wooden hoop, in which case you must show it the same respect you would a religious object. Thirdly, all dolls must always be fully clothed. If they are not, they will be reported to the moral authorities, also known as your aunt. The room's play area is a roughly rectangular space marked out by a rug that is gradually fading, a broken abacus, a kind of wooden puzzle, and what used to be a rocking horse, but which now has 1 eye and 3 legs. Here, you have to play quietly and creatively. This means you should never laugh, jump, or make up games that involve running around, or even worse, using your imagination. At any moment, a grown-up might appear in the doorway to remind you that it's good to keep your hands and mind busy. So, you quickly pretend to be embroidering something useful, like a handkerchief you secretly intend to bury in the yard later. In the middle of a nursery, there's a big chair called the nurse's chair. This was a popular chair for children in Victorian times. It's not for sitting. It's for watching, questioning, and sometimes resting upright while holding a tray of cod liver oil and a hairbrush. Nanny is in charge of this small army. She knows all about manners, has a mysterious drawer full of soothing syrups, and can sense fun from 3 rooms away. Let's talk about your toys. You might have a wooden soldier with an arm missing, or a doll with porcelain cheeks, glass eyes, and a haunting stare that has definitely seen crimes. If you're lucky, your toys are kept in a locked cabinet. This is supposed to be for your safety, but it's more likely to stop you from having fun with them. You can take out the Noah's Ark set once a week, but only if you promise not to drown the camels again. The nursery's window looks out onto the garden, where you sometimes see other children being led around in a line by adults with umbrellas like sabers. You really want to join them, but first you must learn your lessons. This means learning about moral poetry, practicing your handwriting, and learning how to curtsy or bow to imaginary royalty. If you're really well behaved, you can sometimes watch the street from the safety of your window cage. You can enjoy the fresh London air as you hang 2 floors above your neighbor's laundry. The Victorian nursery was not just a room. It was a special place where children were raised. A place where you can have fun, but also be careful. Every treat is a test, and every cuddle comes with a lecture about building character. It's not so much about childhood, but more like a long trial to see if you can be a small, well-behaved adult. But if you play your cards right, you might make it to dinner without being accused of being a bad person or being sticky. In Victorian times, that would be seen as a successful day. It's breakfast time, which means it's time for GRL. Every morning, you're greeted with a pale, lumpy substance that Victorian mothers claim is healthy, but which mostly seems designed to crush your spirit before you even reach the schoolroom. Sugar is rare, flavor is forbidden, and if you're very lucky, you'll find a rogue raisin, unless it's a dead fly. The table is set very neatly and tidily, like a military operation. Heavy curtains keep the sunlight out. Don't even think about letting a single beam of light illuminate the culinary tragedy that is your breakfast. You make your way to your seat. Your hands are very sore from yesterday's cold water wash, and you look down at your bowl. It stares back at me, looking thick and angry. If hope had a texture, Victorian girls would be the complete opposite. Siblings sit opposite you, silently enjoying their porridge. There's no pointless chatting. Victorian breakfasts are not a time for bonding. It's for strength. You can only speak Latin or correct someone's table manners. The quiet is sometimes broken by the sound of your father folding the newspaper or the noise of the family dog giving up on asking for food from the table. You take your first bite. It tastes like wet cardboard in Monday mornings. The girl is slightly gray, sometimes a bit bumpy, and occasionally see-through. If you ask what's in it, the answer is always something like goodness, which you realize means whatever was left in the pantry. You chewed carefully, making the occasional noise as you gnawed on the grains of sand that had been left over from the previous day's bread. These grains of sand were used to build the extension that your uncle keeps promising to finish. Butter? Jam? Is there any joy in your life? Don't even try to ask. Butter is for guests. Jam is locked in a cupboard and is only given out in teaspoon amounts if you survive scarlet fever. If you're not from a rich family, sugar is something that most people only talk about in secret and only see at Christmas, like a magic dessert that appears out of nowhere. On special days like birthdays, Queen Victoria's Jubilee, or when the Queen smiled at your mom, there might be an extra scoop of oats, where the whole family might share a single bruised apple. Otherwise, the only thing that varies is the consistency. Sometimes the mixture is very thin and you could drink it. Other times it is very thick and you could use it as mortar. Either way, you eat it. Victorian parents were full of advice about the moral benefits of a Spartan breakfast. They say it builds character, and it gives you a spoon that can also be used as a disciplinary tool. It cleanses the body, even if your body mainly needs cinnamon and perhaps some milk. The grown-ups read out loud warnings about the dangers of French toast and fancy foods, as if a croissant might sneak in and corrupt the young people. Sometimes you'll see adverts in the penny papers for breakfast powders that promise to make you healthy, give you glowing skin, and stop you from getting sick all the time. You beg for a tin, but your mother doesn't care. She reminds you that the family's secret to living a long life is simple, fair, and involves discomfort every day. You start to think your ancestors lived this long just because they were stubborn. After the ordeal, you're sent off to school or nursery, feeling like you can't possibly expect anything worse for the rest of the day. If you manage to sneak a piece of last night's bread or a bit of cheese from the pantry, you're really living large. Just don't let your nanny catch you, or you'll get a telling off for eating too much and snacking between meals. By the time breakfast is over, you are clean, you have been disciplined, you're a little hungry, and you're ready for a day of learning moral stories and avoiding fainting spells before noon. In Victorian times, breakfast was not the most important meal of the day. It's just the first of many challenges that a child faces as they grow up. And if you make it to lunch, that's another miracle. In Victorian times, children were taught to be invisible. The house is filled with the sound of the saying, "Children should be seen but not heard." Your job is to blend in with the furniture, avoid squeaking floorboards, and hope nobody asks you a direct question at dinner. If you laugh at the wrong time, you might be sent to a lonely cell with only poetry to keep you company. It's a delicate art, this silent dance. You move through the house like a very small, slightly nervous ghost. He thinks carefully about every step. Walk only on the runner, never the loose board, and for goodness sake, never trip over the foot tool. If you need to sneeze, do it into your elbow and say sorry. Coughs must be kept quiet. Hiccups are not allowed. And if you drop something, you'd better be able to travel back in time to fix it before the adults notice. The drawing room is a minefield. You are allowed in, but only if you are completely still and seem like a potted plant. You sit with your hands folded and your eyes looking down, and you try not to look at the biscuits on the sideboard. You know that you should not look at the biscuits, but you know that you want to look at them. You should stand with your knees together and your body straight, not with any toes pointing out from your boots. If you fidget, Aunt Prudence will notice, and nothing ruins a Tuesday faster than Aunt Prudence's disappointed sigh. Dinner is the last test of the day. Grown-ups talk about the Crimean War, go to church, and the cost of sewing. You, meanwhile, must eat without making a noise, chew thoroughly, and resist the temptation of the gravy boat. If you're spoken to, your answer should be short, polite, and, if possible, in full sentences. Yes, Father. No, Mom. I'm really sorry, Grandmama. I will never again mention frogs at the table. If you make a joke, it should be about Greek mythology or make a fun pun about sherry. Otherwise, it's quiet. People think that being ignored is a good thing. If you don't say much, you'll be safer. You become good at the neutral face, which is a face that says, I am content, I am grateful, and I am definitely not thinking about hiding under the piano. You learn to control your laughter, to suppress the urge to ask why Cousin Edgar's hair looks like a frightened hedgehog, and to stifle the impulse to sing, shout, or otherwise express joy. Joy is for special occasions like Queen Victoria's birthday and when you see a hedgehog in the garden. But there are some exceptions. If someone wants to see how well you can remember things, they might ask you to recite moral poetry or list the kings and queens of England in reverse order. This is less about honor and more about testing. If you forget the last line of the village blacksmith, you'll be sent back to nursery school with extra writing exercises and a stern reminder about the importance of staying quiet. If you break the code of silence, you will be punished quickly and in a creative way. There's the reflection chair. You sit in it and think about the things you have done wrong while looking at a picture of a weeping angel. There's a type of reading where you read books with titles like Why Talking Leads to Ruin. And of course, there's the dreaded no supper, which means going to bed hungry while thinking about how you could have done better. But perhaps the most Victorian punishment of all is the lecture. An adult, often your father, but sometimes a passing neighbor, will explain in great detail why it's good to be quiet, why noisy children end up in prison, and why it's dangerous to speak up. You will nod, say sorry, and decide to talk as quietly as possible for the next week. As the candlelight flickers and the clock chimes 8, you go upstairs quietly, past the creaking steps, back into the nursery. Here you can finally relax, maybe tell your teddy bear a joke, and celebrate another day survived without being heard. In Victorian England, invisibility wasn't just a talent. It's the only skill that you can be sure will get you through. The nanny is in charge of the nursery. A woman who looks like she's made of steel, wearing black clothes, and who can stop a tantrum with just one look. She's like a mix of a therapist, a drill sergeant, and maybe even a crow. Her medicine chest contains enough laudanum and soothing syrups to stun an elephant, and she's not afraid to use them liberally. From the moment you open your eyes, you're under her control. When Nanny is in charge, there's no such thing as a lazy morning. She gets up before the rooster, her hair done up tight, wearing an apron that looks as clean as a whistle, and her keys jangling from her belt like a warning bell. The first thing you hear is her confident walk across the floorboards, a sound that scares children and dust bunnies. You try to hide under the covers, but she knows how to find you. It's not just pointless, it's actively not recommended. Nanny has a very intense stare that could freeze milk from 20 paces away. She never raises her voice. She doesn't need to. If you even sniffle in a way she thinks is unproductive, she'll look at you with her dark eyes, and suddenly you'll feel like you've already done something wrong. There are so many stories about her that have become legends. She once separated two fighting twins by just frowning. And I've heard that she once made the neighbor's dog say sorry for barking while the cat was having its nap. There's a very strict schedule in the nursery, and Nanny makes sure everyone follows it. We have breakfast at 7 o'clock in the morning, then lessons at 8. After that, we go for a quick walk at 9. No matter what the weather is like, we then have time for handwriting, recitations, and playtime. All activities are meant to make people more moral, and apparently, this can be done by eating oatmeal and repeating prayers. If you ever have a spare minute, don't celebrate. She will give you a dust rag and tell you how important it is to be cheerful and hardworking. And then there's the medicine chest. It's a Victorian medicine cabinet full of bottles, powders, and unidentifiable tonics with labels like soothing elixir, cordial of calm, and essence of nettle and briskness. Do you have a toothache, feel unwell, can't sleep, or have a cough? Try this dark, mysterious beer that tastes like despair and old shoes. The side effects range from feeling sleepy to a brief, exciting look at what happens after death. You quickly learn to fake being healthy, so you don't have to risk eating another spoonful. Even though she can be a bit strict, there are times when Nanny almost seems like a normal person. Sometimes, if you say your prayers correctly, she might read you a story. These stories are usually about how someone gets in trouble for something small, like having untidy shoes or being too excited. Sometimes, if the wind is right and the household is calm, she'll let you play with the special toys, a set of building blocks that have been used a lot, or a puzzle with missing pieces. If you ever see a twinkle in her eye, it's probably just her imagination, but you can always hope. Nanny is very good at making sure the children behave. She believes in the healing powers of cod liver oil, the importance of regular bedtimes, and the value of keeping your hands busy. She rarely punishes them physically. Oh no, they're like psychological masterpieces. A stern lecture on the fate of unruly children, a pointed glance at the family Bible, or the dreaded silent treatment during which the nursery becomes noticeably colder. And don't forget, nannies know everything. She sees everything, hears everything, and remembers every bad thing that people do. Lost a button? She knows. Put your greens under the cushion. She knows. He whispered about her mustache. She definitely knows and will remind you of it when you least expect it, usually during a family gathering. You will end up really liking your Victorian nanny. She's like a prison guard, a strict teacher, a storyteller, and if you're lucky, your biggest defender. You'll spend your childhood avoiding her. But one day, when you're older and more independent, you'll realize you can fold hospital corners, talk about tennis, and get by on 6 hours of sleep. It's all because of her. In Victorian England, that's not just childcare. This is how you get ready for anything life can throw at you. It's time for a bath once a week, even if you don't really need it. You're taken to a bucket in the kitchen, scrubbed with strong soap, and told to be grateful you're not being rinsed off with vinegar. Cold water toughens you, and so do the strange rashes you get after. Bath night is like a big deal, like when you have a small operation. The house fills with the noise of kettles, the sizzle of water meeting metal, and the distant sound of someone trying to light the fire with a match. You are asked to go to the kitchen, where the bathtub looks like a shiny thread, as if it is cold and made of steel. Your brothers and sisters look at each other, each hoping not to be the one who has to go first because they are too cold, or last because they are too chubby. If you're lucky, you get to go first and get the hottest, cleanest water. If you're unlucky, you're thrown into what is basically a dirty, gray soup. It's full of bits that might have been buttons or crumbs from last Sunday's sew-it-yourself pudding. In Victorian times, everyone in the house shared the same bath water. The law says that we must protect the environment, and this is also a good reason why you might still smell a little of turnips on Thursday. The nanny or mother is standing with her sleeves rolled up and soap ready. Carbolic soap, a famous product of modern chemistry, is presented as a luxury, but feels rough like sandpaper dipped in pine needles. It leaves you feeling angry and upset, and like you need to be clean. Rinse it with a jug of lukewarm water, pouring it slowly as if it might run out if used too quickly. People only wash their hair on special occasions, like coronations, when they had lice, or when a royal visited. Otherwise, your scalp is brushed vigorously to stimulate the roots, which in practice means to spread the itch evenly. If you complain, you're met with stories of Great Aunt Bessie, who only bathed once a year and lived to be 93, possibly just to be mean. You should also know that before we had modern soap, people used to scrub themselves with vinegar, sand, or even nothing at all. So, having a bath in real water every week is the best, and complaining about it is just not nice. Towels are thin, scratchy, and always slightly damp, no matter how long they are left by the stove. You're rubbed down quickly, left pink and shivering, then wrapped in a clean nightshirt, which is fresh by Victorian standards, meaning it's only been owned by 3 people before and hasn't yet started to think for itself. If you have long hair, it is tied up tightly. This is to make it look neat, but also to keep out wild animals like in the Middle Ages. It's important to check for rashes, scratches, and other marks when bathing your pet. Any spots are treated with ointments from the medicine cabinet, mysterious substances that smell a little like tar and have names like Dr. Clabber's Universal Salve. Cuts are dabbed with iodine or, for extra drama, neat gin. You're then sent to bed, your body tingling, your pores burning, and your hair smelling faintly of whatever flowers were cheapest that week at the market. But the bath does not guarantee cleanliness. By morning, you've already found a mud puddle or a mysterious stain, but no one seems worried. Most people think that a thin layer of dirt protects against illness, and anyone seen scrubbing themselves outside a bath night is thought to be French and probably eccentric. But there are some good points too. A weekly bath is a rare chance to listen in on grown-up gossip, hear the creak and the sound of old pipes, and make boats out of crusts of bread, which are quickly taken away. You come out of the ordeal feeling a bit shocked, but also proud of what you've been through. If you're ever tempted to complain about your morning shower or sigh over a slightly chilly bathroom, remember this. You could be waiting for a lukewarm rinse in water flavored by every member of your family, grateful just to escape with most of your skin intact. In Victorian times, people didn't think about hygiene in the same way as we do today. If you can make it look presentable, that's great. The playroom is a place where children can have fun, but it can also be dangerous. You might get a top, a hoop, or a doll with eyes that follow you everywhere. Most toys are made of wood, break easily, and are completely safe. They are designed to prepare you for life's challenges, or more likely, tetanus. You go into the room feeling excited but also a bit scared. You look at the toy chest and feel the same way you would if you saw a pudding you'd never tried before. Victorian plays are very cleverly made and full of suspense. The Jack-in-a-Box is wound with shaking hands, knowing full well that what pops out isn't a cheerful clown, but the stuff of lifelong trust issues. The rocking horse, with paint flaking off and one ear missing, sits in the corner, looking dangerous. It seems to be daring you to sit on it, even though there might be splinters in places you'd rather not talk about. Toys nowadays are made to be safe, so if they do break, it's not too serious. Wooden blocks are used as tools and weapons in sibling fights. Marbles are beautiful, shiny, and the main reason everyone over the age of 6 has a chipped tooth or a suspicious limb. Doll houses are very detailed. Miniature mansions, complete with tiny furniture and even tinier hazards like pins that look like fire pokers. If you have a toy that is powered by gears and wheels, please be careful. The gears will be stuck by the time it's tea time, and to fix it would take the skills of a Swiss watchmaker or, if that's not possible, a child who doesn't care about personal safety. And then there are the dolls. Victorian dolls are not cute. They are Gothic masterpieces with porcelain faces, glass eyes, and an expression that says, "I know your secrets." Some of them have real human hair, which makes us wonder about where they came from. If you sleep with one too close to your bed, you might wake up thinking you've upset a restless spirit. There are no official rules for the playroom, but everyone follows them. You can play, but please try not to make a mess. Games should be educational, or at least make people think they are. People don't like blind man's bluff because it encourages chaos, but quiet needlework is good. If you want to play catch, you must use a tightly stitched regulation beanbag and play outside. It is best to play under the watchful eye of an adult who is not happy with you and who's holding a handkerchief to their nose. In the corner, there's often a set of iron hoops for hoop rolling, a pastime that sounds innocent until you realize it involves chasing a metal ring down a corridor filled with priceless vases and siblings who believe in full contact sport. Board games exist, but they usually have rules that are longer than the Magna Carta. Also, you're always at risk of being accused of cheating, which is almost as bad as being guilty of treason. And yet, even though there are dangers, the playroom is a place where kids can escape the constant moralising of the adult world. Here, you can organize big battles with tin soldiers, or set up a small tea party for your teddy bear and the doll that only has one arm left. Sometimes, if Nanny is distracted and you have no one watching, you can let loose and be a bit wild. Every playroom has its legends. The toy you're not allowed to touch, which is often broken and needs to be repaired since 1867. The brother or sister who swallowed a marble but survived. The strange noise of the toy cupboard door closing. It's late at night, and you're swapping stories quietly. You try to outdo each other with tales of near misses, dramatic rescues, and the day Cousin Bertie sat on a spinning top and walked funny for a week. When playtime is over, you tidy up, pretending you weren't just having a little fight. Check your fingers for splinters and your knees for bruises. If you make it to supper without any obvious signs of injury, you've done well. In a Victorian playroom, fun and danger go hand in hand. And if you can avoid tetanus, survive the scary dolls, and not lose your marbles, literally or figuratively, you're already doing really well in life. In a surprising example of Victorian parenting, some urban parents will even hang their babies in wire cages outside the window to let them get some fresh air. If you're lucky, you'll only feel a bit cold. If not, you learn early about gravity and the pigeon population of London. The scene looks almost surreal. The buildings were made up of lots of brick and wire boxes. The boxes had babies in them, and the babies were looking at the city. Victorian parenting books are full of warnings about the dangers of stale air and rooms that are not well ventilated. So, the answer is to hang your precious bundle out of reach, maybe several floors up like a potted plant. If potted plants wore bonnets and screamed, you, the baby, would be wrapped up in so many layers of wool, muslin, and optimism that you'd look like a turnip that's just been fed. Nanny carries you through the room, past your family, and right to the window where you were put into the cage. The door closes with a clang, and there you are, hanging above the city like a slightly confused canary. If you squint, you can just see Mrs. Pep Beaton's baby 2 windows down. The baby is chewing on its own mitten and glaring at you. The idea is simple. Children need to spend time in the fresh air. But Victorian fresh air is not as fresh as it used to be. It's more like the air around an industrial area with a bit of manure smell. But mothers believe that it makes their children stronger and healthier, and that it will protect them from lung diseases in the future. Sometimes the local doctor walks by, nods at the babies in the air, and thinks about how he can sell more cough syrup in the winter. The weather is only a small thing to think about. If it's raining, the cage is covered with oil. If it's snowing, a hot water bottle might be thrown in for company. Summer days are slightly better. You're less likely to freeze, but now you're at the mercy of the city's pigeons, who see your cage as a great place to live. Sometimes, a kind uncle might suggest using lavender to keep the flies away. It never works. Life in the baby cage teaches you to be strong. You quickly learn to appreciate the simple things like the feeling of your own nose getting warm or the excitement of a double-decker bus rumbling by. Older brothers and sisters sometimes try to give you secret treats like bread, half-eaten toffee, or moral pamphlets about the dangers of drafty rooms by dropping them through the bars. If you cry too loudly, the neighbors look out of their windows, making faces and telling you how to hold your baby to get the best results. The system is not perfect, of course. Sometimes a broken latch or a strong wind can lead to small accidents. There are stories, mostly made up, of babies being found in hedge rows, laundry lines, or even once in the carriage of the Lord Mayor. Most of the time, however, the cage holds firm and you are brought inside, pink-cheeked, lightly dusted with soot, and praise for your strong health. As you get older, you start to feel differently about fresh air. On the one hand, it's good to be recognized for every small success in your life. Little Georgina never catches colds thanks to her years in the window cage. On the other hand, you might flinch at the sight of wire mesh and shiver involuntarily every time someone opens a window. The family photo album contains a blurry sepia picture of you as a baby, bundled up and hanging next to a caption that simply says, "Our little Skylark, July 1887. In Victorian times, baby cages were both strange and logical. They were a result of people's concerns, but they were also based on bad science and bad city planning. But if you survived your time as a human window garnish, you came out stronger and with stories that no modern baby monitor could ever rival. They said that being outside in the fresh air helps children build character and memories. It might even make them more cautious about window ledges for life. If you step out of line, you'll get a wooden spoon or glare. Many people think that corporal punishment helps to build character, and the saying, "spare the rod, spoil the child," is printed on many cushions. Victorian discipline is a complicated mixture of science, folklore, and creative embroidery. There are actual rules, of course. They are long, complicated lists of them written out in beautiful copper plate by some humorous family patriarch and posted in the nursery, kitchen, and possibly even the chicken coop. Rules about not putting elbows on the table, making sure shoes are lined up neatly, and being really strict about being on time. If you break one, you might get a warning look. If you break two, you'll soon see how creative the Victorians were at making people obey. The range of discipline is impressive. There are wooden spoons, canes, slippers, and a hairbrush. Each one is assigned to a particular type of offense, from minor things like giggling to the most serious crime of talking back. Nanny can swipe a duster 10 feet away, and your mother's glare can be felt across 3 rooms and 1 time zone. Some families even have a special chair for punishment. This is a fancy seat in the hallway that is used when someone does something wrong. It's uncomfortable, scary, and it's right under the family picture of a strict-looking ancestor we could get. If you spill milk, you will be punished depending on how bad the crime is. If you're particularly unlucky, stand in the corner and recite the Lord's Prayer backwards. For speaking out of turn, copy the outlines from the Book of Virtues until your hand hurts so much you can't hold it up. For running on an indoor running track, a quick walk outside, no matter what the weather, with Nanny watching you and timing you with a pocket watch that never stops working, is the most scary thing, as everyone knows. The only thing more scary is being sent to bed early, which is seen as a worse punishment than being sent away. But the main way Victorian discipline was enforced was through shame. No one scolds like a Victorian adult. One look from your mom can make you feel really down. If your dad raises his eyebrow at something, it can make you think again about how you see life. Even the family dog looks at you like you're doing something wrong. Every mistake is talked about in detail during dinner, which is a show where everyone joins in. You have to admit your mistake, say sorry, and promise not to forget to curtsy to the umbrella stand again. There is also the public humiliation of the confession. If you've done something really bad, like tracked mud into the living room or laughed during a prayer, you have to stand before the family and explain yourself. Siblings pretend not to smirk while grandmama sighs in a way that suggests your actions are making civilization decline. But in the strange way people think these days, they say all this is actually for your own good. People say that discipline makes you better, stronger, and more able to deal with difficult situations. The wooden spoon is not a tool of punishment, but a symbol of love. A love shown through some difficult life lessons, and the strong belief that you'll be grateful to me in the future. Spoiler alert, you won't. There are lots of rules about rewards for every tale of the rod. If you've kept your shoes clean, your books tidy, and your younger brother from eating the wallpaper paste, you might get a toffee, a new penny, or best of all, a rare word of praise. Well done, says your dad, and you feel proud until it's time for tea. So, you learn to walk softly, keep your opinions to yourself, and develop an uncanny ability to sense when a grown-up is approaching. You become very good at reading the situation and working out how far you can go before you get into trouble. You might even discover the secret art of negotiating less harsh punishments, like offering to eat an extra helping of cold cabbage in exchange for skipping the lecture on the dangers of uncontrolled enthusiasm. In the end, Victorian discipline is more about rules than about hitting children. Rules that you try to remember, but end up breaking. And you end up passing them on to the next generation with a sigh and a slightly softer spoon. History, like your mother's glare, has a long memory. If you ever receive a sweet, be grateful for it. You might not get another one until Christmas. Sweets are rare, expensive, and they make your teeth hurt straight away. If there are any dentists around, they have pliers and don't feel sorry for anyone. The word treat is all it takes to make everyone in the Victorian household stop what they're doing and listen. You might see a tin of barley sugar on the highest shelf, or a faint smell of peppermint coming from the parlor. Today is a good day for your blood sugar levels. Maybe it's a birthday or the Queen's 60th year on the throne. Or maybe your mom is feeling especially generous after her second glass of sherry. Either way, you can feel the excitement in the air. You and your brothers and sisters meet in the drawing room, feeling excited and looking at each other, each hoping that someone will give them a sweet. Victorian sweets are amazing and a little scary. Hard sweets, usually hand-wrapped and brightly colored, are displayed in glass jars like precious treasures. Turkish delight, if you're very upper middle class, arrives covered in so much powdered sugar that it will make you sneeze. The local bakery sells sticky buns, trifle tarts, and for those who like a bit of a gamble, candied violets. But the most popular treat is chocolate, which these days is more of an experience than a bar. A piece of wood that is a bit gritty and waxy, and which can be eaten. Buying sweets is something the whole family does together. Mother gives us barley sugar drops as if they were holy. Each child gets one to enjoy slowly. No biting allowed. Sucking a sweet is a thoughtful process. The best way to enjoy this is either by reading about a pilgrim's journey or listening to a story about a boy who ate two in one go and then burst into flames. Or you could listen to the story about the boy who was sent to bed without his dinner, which is pretty much the same thing. But this feeling doesn't last long. Victorian sweets are well known for causing problems with teeth. Even before you finish, you feel a familiar pain in your MERS. A warning that the family dentist, who also works as the local barber, vet, and hypnotist at the weekend, will be needed soon. These days, dentistry is more like a performance art than a medical science. If you complain of a toothache, you're given a clove of garlic and told to bite down on it until the pain stops. If you keep on feeling pain, Mr. Blackwell will see you. He has a toolkit with rusty pliers, a bottle of gin, and a sense of optimism. If you survive the ordeal without giving in to temptation, you learn the strict rules about treats. Don't eat in front of your guests. Don't chew loudly. Don't ever swap sweets for marbles, frogs, or the neighbor's cat. In theory, sharing is encouraged, but in practice, each child finds a clever hiding spot. Hollowed out books, old shoe boxes, or the secret stash hidden inside your Sunday best. For people who don't have much money, treats might be a piece of dry fruit cake. If times are hard, a spoonful of molasses hastily scraped from the bottom of a nearly empty jar is a good idea. There are stories about children who have tried sugar before Christmas, but these are usually thought of as fairy tales or the result of reading too much. The closest you come to regular sweetness is bread and jam, served on rare sunny afternoons, and only if no one else is watching. The town sometimes has a fair where children run around, looking at stalls full of gingerbread men, sticky toffee apples, and boiled sweets that are brightly colored. Here, nothing is off limits. You eat a lot in 1 hour, and then in the evening you feel bad about all the food you ate. You think about how important it is to eat only a small amount of food. Sweets are more than just food. They are short moments of happiness, the stuff of childhood legend, and the reason why you will always be wary of anyone with dental tools. Victorian treats may be rare, but they stick with you for years, like your dentist bill. Off to school, where you'll learn times tables, recite Latin, and practice penmanship until your fingers cramp. The classrooms are cold, the teachers are strict, and if you make a spelling mistake, you'll spend lunchtime copying out moral lessons by candlelight. Victorian schooling is more about keeping up your endurance than it is about learning. Your day starts with the loud sound of a bell, maybe rung by a head mistress who is very enthusiastic. You walk through the iron gates, your shoes making no noise, your hair perfectly arranged, and your uniform very neat. The classroom itself is a monument to minimal comfort. There are rows of desks with sharp corners, ink pots that leak often, and blackboards that are covered in dust from the last generation of students. You find your assigned seat. You can't pick your own, unless you want a stern lecture on the problems of personal choice. Each desk comes with a slate, a piece of chalk, and enough space to write. A cold breeze blows along the floorboards, making your toes curl in their boots. In winter, you might see your breath as you recite multiplication tables. In summer, you sweat quietly so that your carefully written words don't smudge. The curriculum is broad, but not always inspiring. You should know your times tables backwards. Say long passages of moral verse. Work hard, play hard, and make sentences until you don't know what language means. Latin is taught with a sense of resignation. After all, learning a dead language is a great way to prepare for life. Geography involves learning the names of countries you will never visit. History is mostly about kings, battles, and why the French are not to be trusted. Teachers, on the other hand, are more like referees in the daily contest between discipline and rebellion. Mr. Snipe, your maths teacher, has an uncanny ability to appear directly behind you whenever you are not paying attention. Miss Grimshaw, the writing teacher, can spot a sloppy cue from far away and will give students extra writing tasks. Discipline is maintained by using the cane, a stick, the dunce cap, a hat that looks like a dunce's hat, and, most feared of all, public humiliation in front of the class. If you excel, there is little time for celebration. Maybe a gold star, a pat on the head, or the strange honor of wiping the blackboard. If you fail, the consequences are quick and very disappointing. One spelling mistake can waste up to half an hour of line writing time. I must remember that I comes before E, except after C, unless or worse. Saying moral rules without planning it in front of the whole school. Your reputation depends completely on your ability to recall whether receive is spelled with 2 E's or an existential crisis. Lunchtimes are no break. You eat quickly, and sometimes you have bread and a bit of cheese, or last night's stew if you're not in a mood for it. There is no cafeteria, just a hall that is a bit cold, and you hope that your sandwich has not been squashed by a prefect who has passed by. When they're allowed to play, they do things like marching around the playground, or if they're feeling rebellious, playing marbles in the corner. In the end, you go home with your fingers covered in ink, your wrists hurt, and you have lots of facts in your head, some of which may or may not be true. Your handwriting is perfect, you always show respect for authority, and you are haunted by the multiplication table and the Latin verbs that you have to learn. In the Victorian era, children were expected to focus on their studies rather than having fun or exploring new things. It's about survival, discipline, and making sure you always write your name at the top of the page. Cough. Here is a syrup that contains alcohol, opium, and a small amount of hope. It is a medicine that can help you feel better. Put on some mercury ointment. The medicine cabinet is full of illegal substances and nobody knows what they do. Victorian medicine is more like a magical guessing game than science. Every household has a cabinet that would make a modern pharmacist call the police. We are living in a time where people take lots of different medicines, and the amount they take is measured with big spoons. The side effects of medicines are usually ignored unless they're interesting enough to talk about at dinner. The first thing you should do is always use a syrup. I have a cough. Mother cheerfully produces a thick brown potion that smells like a distillery on a bad day and tastes even worse. You ask what's in it. Well, goodness, she replies, which you realize is a way of saying that everything left in the bottle is in there, plus a dash of hope. The label, if you can read it through the syrup stains, proudly says it contains alcohol, opium, chloroform, and a special mix of 12 calming herbs. You are told to take 2 spoonfuls and then go lie down, which you do. For the next 8 hours, you're either asleep, floating, or writing poetry on the wall. You get minor cuts and scrapes. The medicine is taken out, and a lot of the ointment is put on. It is put on by someone who still thinks that antiseptic stings a lot. For bigger wounds, there's carbolic acid, followed by a layer of something called healing paste, which seems to be made of lard and Victorian optimism. The common way to treat bruises is to rub them with goose fat or butter, as the belief is that the more delicious the food, the better it is for the pain. Then there's the medicine for nerves. Children are not supposed to have nerves, of course, but if you show any signs of anxiety or a tendency to jump at thunder, you'll be given a bad score. Winslow syrup was soothing and would stop children, horses, and probably small ghosts for making noise. If you're too excited, try cooling powders. They're meant to calm you down, but they usually just make you sleep for a long time and get a bit of a rash. There are lots of different ways to treat colds and fevers. Hot mustard plasters are put on your chest like a medal is given to a soldier. They stay there until you get better or a new rash appears. Garlic necklaces are worn around the neck to help cure the illness. If that doesn't work, the family doctor is called. The doctor's bag contains tools like forceps and a stethoscope, and he uses leeches a lot. If you're not bleeding, you're not being treated. People have given the most creative answers when asked about their stomach. You'll be given a paint stripper that tastes nice. Constipation. That's what castor oil is for. It's said that this punishment is so scary that it can work even if you don't do anything else. If you have diarrhea, you'll be given a thick rice ball and a long lecture about the dangers of uncontrollable bowel movements. The family medicine chest contains a mixture of good and bad things. There are powders that fizz, ointments that burn, lozenges that stick your tongue to your teeth, and tonics that promise to make you feel full of energy. But most of all, they make you want to drink plain water. Sometimes you're given a cup of hot milk and told to sleep it off. This works not because it cures anything, but because you are finally left alone. In the Victorian era, illness was seen as both a drama and a group activity. Everyone gathers to offer advice, argue about favorite cures, and reminisce about that one time cousin Algernon was cured of his limp by 3 drops of turpentine and a firm talking to. Whether or not you recover is not the point. The important thing is that you've tried some of the medicines from the local pharmacy and survived, maybe with superpowers, but probably with a rash that won't go away. In the end, the best medicine is survival and being careful about any bottle that says it is soothing. The only thing more dangerous than your nanny is your brothers and sisters. You make alliances that might not last, negotiate for closet space, and sometimes try to escape, but your little brother always finds out and stops you. The Victorian nursery is a war zone, but it's hidden by lace. Sibling relationships can be like a game of chess or a battle royale, with changing alliances, betrayals, and sometimes a truce that's agreed over stale biscuits. You quickly learn that nothing is safe, especially not your things. If you look away for a second, someone else is wearing your favorite top. Your precious marble has rolled under a mysterious piece of furniture, and your secret stash of peppermints has vanished, leaving only a trail of sticky fingerprints. Who your friends and enemies are changes over time, or more accurately, based on how close they are to adults. When Nanny arrives, everyone stops fighting and becomes a sweet, angelic person, suddenly interested in embroidery or the details of Latin grammar. The moment she leaves, the real games begin. People are whispering and nudging each other instead of talking politely. The eldest sibling tries to be in charge, but only until someone remembers where they hid last week's cricket bat that was taken away. Having enough closet space is very important. The wardrobe is big enough for all of us, but every morning it becomes a battleground. There's a single shelf that everyone really wants for some unknown reason. But victory is short-lived. One day you're the king of the upper shelf. The next you're kicked out in a coup. Your nightshirt has gone, and your shoes are filled with mysterious treasures, all thanks to the baby. Escapes are a popular activity. You and your older sister might make plans for days to sneak into the kitchen for a piece of cake or to go in the garden to dig for buried treasure, which is usually just last season's carrots. Every part of the plot depends on silence, teamwork, and perfect timing. Your little brother ruins every plot because he can't whisper and always shouts just as Nanny is coming around the corner. There's always someone who gets blamed for things going wrong, and it's usually the youngest person in the group. This makes them safe from the other members of the group, but it also means that the other members of the group don't trust them. Betrayal is always a possibility. Maybe you told your sister where you hide your sweets, and the next morning it's been searched and a note left saying, "Better luck next time." Perhaps your brother promised to be loyal during the Great War, but then changed his mind the moment you were asked to wash for dinner. Treaties are written in crayon, signed with sticky hands, and broken by sundown. You learn to negotiate, read people's expressions, and bribe with things that are popular at the time, like buttons, sweets, or information about the new government. But there are also moments when they all agree. There's nothing that makes brothers and sisters get along better than when they're in danger. Whether it's the sudden noise of footsteps, the scary thought of cod liver oil, or a parent telling them they're going to get in trouble, it all helps them stick together. Then, as if by magic, arguments are forgotten and you all act like you don't know each other. Evenings are perfect for sharing bedtime stories, having secret conversations, and giggling under warm wool blankets. You think about the fun you had in the past, make big plans for what you want to do in the future, and sometimes you admit that you would be very lonely without your friends. Life as a Victorian sibling is not easy, but it teaches you how to survive. When you leave childhood, you have a good understanding of how to make plans. You're careful around people who want to make a deal with you. And you have a range of memories that include both good and bad times. And as you finally fall asleep, you can hear quiet snoring and distant planning in the nursery. A reminder every night that, like all families, you're all in this together. Victorian parents had advice for every occasion, whether you like it or not. Some people say that if you read too much, your eyes will fall out. Others say that if you swallow a cherry pit, a tree will grow inside you. It's never comforting, usually alarming, and often based on something they overheard at a funeral. The day starts with advice and ends with warnings. Advice is given like other families serve tea. This often happens, and it is usually serious. It can happen without you asking for it. If you're caught standing near an open window, you'll be told about the dangers of drafts. That's how Cousin Percal felt scared and lost. If you try to leave the house with damp hair, your mother will tell you the story of a girl from Ipswich who did just that and was never the same again. She may not remember what happened to the girl, but she's sure it was unpleasant. Every little illness is an opportunity for people to share their thoughts. A sniffle is not the same as a cold. It's a warning from the universe. Your prescribed mustard plasters, eucalyptus vapors, and, if you're particularly unlucky, a dose of something described as tonic. The directions are simple. Drink until you feel better, or at least so distracted by the taste that you forget why you needed it. Sometimes your father's advice seems to be based on home remedies. He says that the best way to treat a sore throat is to go for a quick walk and stay positive. It's as if he thinks that being cheerful can beat the virus. But health is only the start. Reading is a way to escape from the endless chores and moral poetry of life. But it is also subject to a long list of warnings. Don't read by candlelight or you'll go blind before you're grown up. Don't read novels or you'll start to daydream and you'll become unfit for marriage. Don't read standing up, sitting down, lying down, or at all really, unless it's the Bible. You can read, but only if you promise not to get too excited by the plot. The most valuable lessons come from dinner conversations with your parents, where they share their thoughts on topics like social climbing and nutrition. Don't trust a man with two first names. If you cross your eyes, they'll stay that way forever. You should always carry a handkerchief, a shilling, and an alibi. Your mother really likes warnings about plants. She says that things like pits in fruit, apple seeds, and sometimes grapes can make your body have problems. You check your stomach in the mirror just in case. Victorian advice is rarely practical and never reassuring. You're told that picking at scabs will make the local clergy dislike you, that laughing too loudly will frighten the neighbors, and that asking questions is how the French do things. If you express doubt, people accuse you of thinking like a modern person, which is seen as almost as bad as having weak ankles or being left-handed. Sometimes you get advice that is so good it is like poetry. Remember, life is a journey. Make sure your shoes are clean and your conscience is clear, or you might be in for a surprise. You could trust the postman, but not the post. There are warnings about muddy puddles, going for walks alone, and talking to anyone with a mustache after sunset. Even though there's lots of advice, you rarely get useful tips like how to avoid getting in trouble with nannies or what to do if you accidentally spill ink on your best clothes. Instead, you become good at nodding politely and saying, "Yes, Father," when you're actually planning to disobey. But don't worry, your parents just want to help. They're trying to prepare you for a world they only half understand by using a steady stream of folklore, superstition, and wishful thinking. Their advice might be confusing, alarming, or sometimes funny, but it's like the constant background noise of your childhood. It reminds you that in Victorian England, safety, virtue, and a little healthy paranoia were always around. The nursery walls are covered in a paint that contains lead. The curtains are made of fabric that has been treated with arsenic, and there is asbestos in every cozy corner. It's surprising that anyone makes it to adulthood, but at least you're protected from drafts and sometimes from other people's thoughts. Victorian interior design is best described as deadly elegance. Everything is a potential health hazard, but at least it's tastefully coordinated. You wake up each morning to a room painted in soft colors like pistachio, rose, and a shade of green called Victorian green. This color is actually a mix of different pigments, one of which is arsenic. It's lovely in the morning sun, but not so nice when the wallpaper starts to come off and you have a headache after reading by candlelight. The carpet, soft and patterned, hides not just stains from last year's Christmas pudding, but a lot of mercury used to make the colors bright and the carpet extra soft. The curtains flutter in the wind. They're deep green and blue shades coming from chemicals called Paris green and Shields green. They are both well known for causing skin rashes and for making people faint. You're told not to chew on the curtains, but nobody tells the cat, and the vet bill is put in the acceptable childhood hazards box. Your toys are no better. The furniture in the dollhouse is painted with a lead-based paint that chips off easily. Tin soldiers and painted alphabet blocks look charming lined up on the shelf. You might not be as charming after spending a rainy afternoon playing with them out of boredom and leaving the playroom with a strange metallic taste in your mouth. Even teething rings, which were made of bone or ivory, sometimes had a bit of whale bone dipped in paint from the front hall. If you trip and fall, you might bump into the coal scuttle, which is covered in asbestos. This is the modern touch. Asbestos stops fire spreading, keeps out the cold, and is useful for putting into cracks to keep out bad smells. I wish it would stop your aunt telling stories about the good old days at the Crystal Palace. Every night, you get into bed under a pile of blankets made of strange materials. The mattress is made of horsehair, feathers, and a few old relics, all covered in a cloud of whatever powder was popular at the time. The pillows smell a little of lavender and camphor, which is added to hide the smell of the body rotting away. There's a window that opens and closes a lot, which is good for air circulation. Your parents think fresh air is really important, but they also think it might be dangerous, so they decide to open the window a little bit and then fill the gap with asbestos weighting. You fall asleep listening to the quiet sound of the curtain cords being moved and the distant sound of the family talking about whether yellow wallpaper is too cheerful for a child. It's not all bad news. The good thing about all this dangerous decor is that it can help you build a sort of immunity. If you can survive your Victorian nursery, you'll never be afraid of a little household dust again. There's a story in your family that your uncle once licked the wallpaper and lived to tell the tale, but he's never been quite the same since. The cat, however, won't go into the nursery at all. Instead, it just sits in the corridor, looking a bit suspicious. Even so, You can't help but feel proud as you look around your colorful but empty home. Other children might have modern nurseries that are safe and free from harmful chemicals. But do they have things that help you build character? When you stay in a Victorian home, you're not just living with history. You breathe it in, nibble on it, and sometimes, if you're very unlucky, you might wake up to find it on your pillow. In the end, it's all part of growing up strong, which in Victorian times meant being able to survive even when you were very sick. Your parents read an article in Punch magazine, and suddenly you're eating nothing but tapioca for a week. People in Victorian times loved a good diet craze. They especially loved eating boiled cabbage, toast water, or drinking a special medicine made from mutton chops. Culinary trends are always changing. One day breakfast is hearty porridge. The next one is slippery elm gruel. This was recommended by a doctor whose only qualification is a bushy set of sideburns and a suspicious letter after his name. Lunch might be just invalid jelly or even beef tea. It sounds like an exciting dish, but it's just a cup of warm meat and water with a vague taste of regret. The idea behind most Victorian diets was that food should be seen as a way of making yourself stronger, not a way of enjoying yourself. Flavor is seen as unimportant, variety is suspicious, and anything remotely tasty is accused of corrupting your moral fiber. You've only just got used to the buns you have at the moment when you see an article in the newspaper saying they're bad for your soul and stomach. The family cook has to understand these changing trends. She spends half her time boiling vegetables and the other half explaining why dessert now tastes like soap. There's always a new superfood that promises amazing results. Arrowroot is very popular right now. People say it can help with stomach problems and make you feel better. Bread made from patent flour seems to be more digestible, but less tasty. Somebody's uncle is saying that beef extract is the answer to everything, from feeling sad to sore ankles. Mothers share their best long-term baby food recipes as quickly as other parents do their best gluten-free snack tips. You think that a lot of these new foods were invented by people who have a stake in the tapioca trade. You see medical endorsements everywhere. Dr. Quim's digestive powders make cabbage taste good and help with tummy problems. If the doctor is pictured wearing a velvet jacket with a serious face, there's a good chance you'll be drinking it by the end of the week. Your mother reads out some of the reviews from the past. Since I ate nothing but cold stewed prunes for 2 weeks, my digestion has never been better. You look at the prune dish with deep suspicion. A Victorian diet would not be complete without a healthy amount of water-based substitutes. Toast water is a popular drink. You soak stale bread in boiling water, strain it, and then serve it lukewarm. If you're lucky, you get a dab of jam to mix in for color. Milk is boiled until it's completely gone. Tea is sometimes made with vinegar to help keep you healthy. Your personal favorite is cabbage water, a strong drink that seems to test how far a son can go in obeying his parents. The idea of purity also includes special diets for children. If you're too thin, you'll have to eat a lot of pudding and large sandwiches for a week. Too plump. Welcome to the raw carrot and barley diet. Many people think that if you enjoy eating, you're doing something wrong. Sweets and cakes are very rare, and medicinal treats, licorice root or tana biscuits, are handed out as if they're chocolate, but with about as much joy. But these diets never work. You think you've got a month of sago pudding to look forward to, but then a new trend appears. Maybe just dry toast and boiled turnips or pickles. Fads fade as quickly as they appear, but not before leaving their mark in the form of vivid childhood memories and the occasional nervous tick when someone mentions health bread. In the end, you become an expert at pretending to enjoy your food, and you learn to distinguish between different types of food. Victorian diet fads taught people to be resilient, resourceful, and to hide unwanted food in the nearest potted plant. And as every Victorian parent would tell you, That helps to build character. Christmas arrives with a rush of worry and pine needles. You get one toy, an orange, and you're told not to play too loudly. Everyone is feeling sentimental and a bit ill from last night's roast goose. Christmas in Victorian times was not a holiday, but a difficult time when people had to endure a lot of cheer and strict rules. The season begins weeks in advance with the family preparing the drawing room for Christmas. They dust, polish, and discuss whether holly or mistletoe is less likely to poison the cat. The house fills with the smell of dried oranges and cloves and the quiet panic of people realizing they forgot to order the plum pudding. The Christmas tree, a prickly wonder from Germany that Queen Victoria loved, is put up neatly and tidily. You and your brothers and sisters are asked to help, which means being told to stand still, not to touch anything, and not to try to hang the glass blinds that have been around since the time of King George IV. Every ornament has its own story, and older relatives always tell these stories in great detail. The candles are carefully placed on the branches and then watched closely by the whole family in a bucket of sand for the rest of the evening. Fire hazards are a long-standing tradition. On Christmas morning, you wake up early, excited and a bit cold. The presents are simple and meaningful. Maybe a painted wooden toy, a knitted scarf, or the long-awaited orange, like winning the lottery. No one receives batteries. This is mostly because they haven't been invented yet, but also because even if they had been, your toy would still be powered by your imagination and hope. Breakfast is a simple meal. It's the quiet time before the big cooking session. There's bread, maybe a bit of cheese, and if your mom is feeling good, a bit of homemade jam. You're warned not to ruin your appetite, but the real challenge is finding one after the big night out the night before. The children are made to stand in a corner and play quietly with their new treasures. Those who make too much noise are sent to practice carols with a relative who is not very musical. The main event is the Christmas dinner, a celebration of Victorian excess and culinary ambition. The table groans under the weight of roast goose, or if you're lucky, a rare turkey, heaps of potatoes, minced meat pies, and the ever-mysterious boiled pudding, which is doused in brandy and set alight for drama. Older relatives clap their hands and show that they like it. The children are shocked, and someone always tries to put out the flames with a lace napkin. No meal is complete without speeches. These speeches are usually long and talk about important things like the Queen, the country, and how strong families are. The feelings are as strong as they were last week, Sherry. Your parents talk about Christmases in the past. Each story is more unbelievable than the last. When I was a child, we had to make do with a walnut. And the memory of a sweet grandfather makes her think the pudding was bigger, the weather colder, and the oranges juicier. After dinner, everyone has to play games together. The rules are so complicated that no one wins. Dramatic readings of Dickens. And for the brave, a walk in the icy garden to help you digest your food and think about all the good things in your life. You must thank every adult there for your gifts, even if you didn't ask for socks, needed socks, or even if you don't know if the gift is socks. By the evening, you're tired, happy, and a bit sick. As the gas lights flicker and the wind rattles the window panes, you get together to sing carols. You sing off-key, but with heart and feeling. Sometimes you sing at least half a verse out of order. The adults exchange tired smiles. The children, who are sticky with dried fruit and sentiment, start to make plans to keep the magic going for just a little bit longer. A Victorian Christmas is all about being thankful, staying calm, and not going overboard. As you finally go to bed, you hold your orange, your one special toy, and you think about the fun you had. Remember, the real tradition is making it through it with your dignity and your Christmas stocking intact. Pets can help you build character and resilience. You might have a dog, a canary, or even a hedgehog that can be surprisingly aggressive. It is more likely that your constant companions are the family lice, which nobody seems particularly worried about. In Victorian times, children had many different animals as pets. Some people were happy to see them, some people weren't so happy, and most of them arrived without an invitation. If you're lucky, your family owns a small, nervous terrier who spends half its time barking at coalmen and the other half shedding on every surface. There might be a cage canary, which is a cheap pet, or for the more adventurous, a hedgehog, which is a pet that can be bought in a book about nature, but which is often unwelcome when it starts to run around the house. Pets are seen as useful for teaching people about right and wrong. Dogs teach loyalty, canaries patience, and hedgehogs humility. Children are given jobs like feeding the animals, cleaning the animal cages, and sometimes getting the animals out of places where they shouldn't be, like under the piano or up the chimney. Responsibility is important, but so is courage. When a hamster dies, it is buried in the garden with a Bible verse and a reminder that life is short. Sentimentality is for expensive ponies and the occasional goose that survives Christmas. But for every official pet, there are many unofficial ones. The Victorian nursery is full of small, busy creatures. There are spiders in the corners, a procession of ants whenever someone spills jam, and the constant noise of houseflies. Bed bugs can get into your mattress. Mice meet secretly in the way scotating. And of course, the family lice settle in your hair, which everyone else just ignores, except for the nanny, who has a special comb and a very serious look on her face. People's attempts to get rid of pests are creative, but not always successful. Sticky paper traps hang from the ceiling, and they smell a bit like vinegar. People hide lavender sachets under pillows to try to keep moths away. The cat, whose job it is to hunt mice, spends its days lying in the sun and looking offended. When you're really stuck, your mom suggests airing the room out and using some household courage, which basically means making believe you don't see anything moving. Sometimes pets and pests have similar characteristics. Siblings might choose a clever mouse to adopt, give it a name, and secretly feed it small pieces of cheese. This way, the mouse might become a member of the household who is not completely unwelcome. One year, your brother tries to raise tadpoles in a water jug. This leads to an awkward incident at bath time and a new family rule about amphibians in the nursery. There are stories about animals escaping and stories about animals needing help. The dog chews up a very valuable family treasure. The hedgehog runs away and is later found curled up in a drawer of the underwear. Someone's canary gets loose and sits on the Christmas tree, refusing to come down until it is bribed with the last currant bun. Anything that goes wrong becomes the stuff of family legend, told and retold at dinner, and slowly becoming more exaggerated until it's almost a myth. Caring for living things, whether officially or not, teaches you to be creative. You learn to build tiny houses out of matchboxes, to dig elaborate burial plots in the garden, and to identify flea bites with the expertise of a small, itchy dermatologist. Lice are picked out on bath night. If they're talked about at all, they're seen as something that just happens and proof that everyone is equal in God's eyes. You learn to understand other people, keep calm, and be realistic. You are sad when you lose your pets, but you also accept that looking after animals is not always easy. When you see a modern pet store, which is clean and empty, you think about a world where animals are only companions and never intruders. In the end, the creatures that you remember from your Victorian childhood, whether you loved them, tolerated them, or simply survived with them, leave their mark on your memory. As you drift off to sleep, the comforting sounds of a dog, a canary, and a mouse nibbling on a forgotten biscuit remind you that, in the Victorian nursery, at least you're never alone. Play is always being checked by an adult, and it is always teaching children something. Rich children get rocking horses and geography games. Poor children play with sticks, and whatever small animals they can catch. The more layers you wear, the more fun it is. In Victorian times, even leisure was a performance, and it's really obvious when children are playing games. For those in grand houses, the nursery is well stocked with fancy toys, hand-painted rocking horses, detailed dollhouses, and geography puzzles with all the colonies colored in pink. These toys are meant to help children develop their minds, and they often make you think about the British Empire. You will be asked to learn the names of rivers and mountains and to understand why Wales is not really a country before you are allowed to open the toy chest. But even when you're lucky enough to have time to play, it's not always fun in games. Nanny is always ready to step in and help if she sees that someone is not being treated well. Outdoor games must be played more quietly. If you're in the country, you could play croquet. If you're in the drawing room, you could play hopscotch. It's not nice to shout, run, or laugh too loudly. There's a well-known proverb that says children with loose morals make too much noise. For children from working-class families, games are like masterpieces that are made up as they go along. The street is your playground, and the world is your toy box. You might roll a hoop down the alley, fight epic battles with nothing but a stick in your imagination, or swap bottle caps for the chance to sit on the least splintery part of the curb. If you can catch a mouse, you can try to race it. Mice in Victorian England were known for being unionized and often stopping work, but clothing was another issue. Rich children are wearing so many layers that any attempt to run ends in collapse. Poor children, on the other hand, are given a pair of old boots, often 2 sizes too big, and whatever shirts survived last winter. The more money you have, the more likely you are to get tangled in lace while trying to climb a tree. If you don't have much money, you're more likely to fall out of a tree and not realize until it's time to eat dinner. Everyone loves playing make-believe, but the things you choose to play make it clear what your social class is. In rich homes, you play afternoon tea, pouring pretend tea for dolls with slightly haunted eyes. In working-class homes, you could play shop, factory, or run away from the police. Everything is very realistic, just like Dickens' books. If you're particularly unlucky, your game is help bring in the laundry before it rains. It's a fun way to get some experience, but it doesn't pay. Some games bring people together. People play marbles with equal passion in drawing rooms and back alleys, but the quality of the marbles varies. The rich play with glass marbles, while the poor use clay or rolled up bread. Another favorite is skipping rope, but rich children are expected to say French words while skipping, while poor children can shout rude rhymes at passing carriages. In the end, every game teaches us about the hierarchy. The older children boss the younger, the cleverest invent the rules, and the fastest keep their shoes the longest. People usually don't like cheating unless you're really good at it or you're really good at not getting caught. Prizes are rare, maybe a sweet, a penny, or the right to sleep closest to the fire. But even with the rules and the rags, fun find a way. You laugh, you compete, and you sometimes plot against adults who don't appreciate the fun of a well-aimed mud pie. For a few precious minutes, social class doesn't matter. The most important thing is to see who can jump the highest, run the fastest, or hide their marbles from the family cat. And when the games are over and you're called inside, whether to a nursery full of toys or a room with nothing but a well-loved stick, you know you've survived another day in the greatest game of all, being a child in Victorian England. Outside, the streets are very dangerous. There are runaway horses, mysterious puddles, and chimney sweeps. You are warned every day about bad influences and the dangers of fresh air. Every Victorian child, no matter where they live, knows that going outside is an adventure. It's like a real-life version of Snakes and Ladders, but with more actual snakes, escaped pets, and fewer ladders, unless you count those carried by the constant stream of chimney sweeps. Before you've even left the house, your parents give you strict warnings. Don't talk to strangers. Don't take anything that isn't yours. And most importantly, if you see a puddle, cross the street. The reason for that last bit is never fully explained, but you'll find out if you take one accidental step in. The true depth of a Victorian puddle is always a surprise and usually a disappointment. The sights and sounds never stop. Trains rattle by, horses snort and stamp, and market vendors shout prices that change constantly. There's always a dog barking somewhere, a baby wailing somewhere, and a street musician playing a waltz on a violin that's seen better days. If you have a coin purse, hold on to it tightly. Move carefully to avoid the suspicious splatters and stay calm. After all, pickpockets are not just in Dickens. They're being trained everywhere. Crossing the street is an event. Horses are the most important thing. Always remember that they might not be able to see you because they don't want to. The smart cabs speed past their drivers, shouting at everyone and everything. Milk carts and fishmongers rush past, splashing water and sometimes dropping some of their cash. If you're not careful, you'll get splashed, jostled, or shouted at, usually all at once. After one trip, you'll have enough mud on your boots to plant a garden and enough city gossip to write a novel. Chimney sweeps, mostly boys your own age or younger, run in and out of traffic, faces black with soot and eyes shining with the energy of children who climb for a living. You're told not to talk to them, but you can't help smiling or secretly waving. They know all the shortcuts and secret places. If you ever lose a marble, a penny, or a younger brother or sister, they're the ones to ask. Sometimes, if you're feeling particularly adventurous, you might play a game of chase with the local kids. You'll weave through barrels and dodge bike shopkeepers. If you're lucky, you might even avoid the family solicitor. Victorian parents believed that bad influences could be found everywhere, from street performers to newsboys selling cheap books, and especially children who didn't have shoes. You should avoid people who whistle, spit, or look like they have recently been in a fight. If you come home with a new accent, a torn sleeve, or a suspiciously good story about the ghost that haunts the baker's alley, you'll be questioned like they do on the TV show Scotland Yard. And then there's the air itself. Victorian fresh air is an acquired taste. It's made up of equal parts coal, smoke, manure, and the less identifiable fumes your mother warns you about. You're made to wear a scarf against the damp and get in trouble if you cough. But even though it's dangerous and dirty, there's a thrill in the chaos. Watching the street sweepers race against the weather, glimpsing a parade or a puppet show, or just running faster than the next child on your block. Returning home is an adventure. You're checked for bruises, missing buttons, and other signs of moral decay. People leave muddy boots by the door, have their pockets searched for hidden items, and wash their faces so hard that you think half their freckles have been scrubbed off. You may not have found money, but you've survived another day on the most difficult course ever designed, a street from Victorian times. As you fall asleep, you can still hear the sounds of the city, and this makes you want to go out and face it all again the next day. Your future is decided early on. Boys go to prep school to learn Latin and cricket, from finishing school to learning how to faint perfectly. Both are taught that it's best to keep their emotions in check until they're adults, or at least until tea time. In Victorian times, education was less about learning and more about becoming a good example of your gender. For boys, school is a place of constant struggle, filled with challenging subjects like Latin and maths, and sometimes even wet weather that makes them want to give up. Boys are expected to become strong, serious, and above all, quietly unhappy in the pursuit of academic and sporting success. Every day has a fixed plan: chapel, maths, history, a quick fight behind the gym, and handwriting practice so strict that even tiny blots of ink are considered a serious offense. A boy's lessons can be confusing. You have to learn lots of classical poetry by heart, recite your times tables backwards, and learn to translate Latin sentences written by people who never had to sharpen their own quills. In science lessons, you cut up things you're pretty sure were alive that morning. In geography, the world map has huge swathes of land marked with the names of British places. The best thing about a boy's education is cricket. It is played in all weathers, and nobody really knows the rules except the headmaster and maybe the gardener's dog. For girls, education is very different. It is more like a fun party than a strict military training, but it is still scary. Finishing school is more about stopping you from thinking for yourself than about finishing an education. The course includes French conversation, mostly about the weather and embroidery, watercolors of forget-me-nots, and lots of piano practice, always with gloves on so your hands remain as soft as your opinions. The most important thing is what you have achieved. Can you paint a rose? Can you pour tea without splashing? Can you say Paris in front of other people without getting embarrassed? You're taught to enter a room smoothly, to speak only when necessary, and to only share opinions about the weather, Shakespearean heroines, or the best way to arrange lies in a vase. The maths is easy, so as not to strain the female constitution, and serious literature is filtered through the lens of moral improvement. People are not allowed to show their emotions. Boys must never cry unless they are hit by a cricket ball, and even then, they should only cry in Latin. Girls may faint, but tears are only for big moments or when something bad happens. Anger, excitement, and any signs of ambition should be kept to oneself and expressed, if at all, in the privacy of one's diary or during a particularly stormy embroidery session. The differences also show in how the game is played. Boys may wrestle, shout, and stage games of war that look very realistic. A master watches, but pretends not to notice. Girls play croquet, go for walks, or organize doll parades. The only fighting is over who gets to be the duchess. If a girl is caught climbing a tree, or a boy is found knitting, there will be a family meeting, a strict letter to the Times, and probably a week of corrective reading. But there are still secret rebellions. Boys exchange books under their desks. Girls talk about brave women who explore the world. Both of them dream of a world where education is about more than just remembering rules and being able to fake emotions. The lucky ones find someone kind or a bit strange who will secretly give them a copy of the Puig Papers or a kite when no one is watching. In the end, Victorian education does succeed in one way. It teaches you to blend in with other people, hide boredom, and take deep, meaningful breaths. Conjugating verbs or arranging violets is a great way to learn what it means to be a Victorian and how to survive until the next tea break. Teething is an ordeal for everyone. Victorian parents prescribed a lot of things, from breadcrumbs to brandy. If that doesn't work, there's always Mrs. Winslow's soothing syrup. It will make you sleep for 6 to 8 hours. In Victorian times, when children were expected to be seen to be growing up well, the arrival of teeth was seen as a hard test for all the family. The poor baby is constantly drooling. Their cheeks are red, and they want to gnaw on anything that stays still long enough, like the cat, the corner of the rug, or a rattle made of bone that looks like it's been through some kind of haunted experience. It's a hard time for parents. They try lots of different things in the hope of putting their children to bed and staying calm themselves. First, we have the traditional breadcrumb. It was given to him with the same seriousness as a royal scepter. The idea is simple. Make the gum stronger by letting the baby chew on yesterday's bread, which will now be as hard as old wood. If you can find any comfort or even a small bit of satisfaction in this situation, you are already stronger than most. If not, your parents will take you to the next step, which is to use spirits. Brandy is rubbed on people's gums to make them better, which results in a generation of babies who really like alcohol and sleep a lot. But nothing in the Victorian era was as famous as Mrs. Winslow's soothing syrup. This miracle in a bottle promises to help with all kinds of problems, from teething and colic to fussiness and general tantrums. The secret? A mix of morphine, alcohol, and a bit of nice herbs, making a drink that would probably need a prescription today and a long visit from social services. Parents love it. He slept through the night, and so did we, while quietly ignoring the fact that the baby has been smiling at the wallpaper for 3 days straight. If you can't get the syrup, you can use teething powders or cooling drafts instead. Or, if you're really unlucky, you might get bits of coral strung on a ribbon and tied around your neck for protection. The family medicine chest soon looks like an alchemist's laboratory, with vials and jars labeled in beautiful handwriting, but filled with substances that have probably been banned in 5 countries by now. The ordeal doesn't end at home. When relatives come to visit, they give advice that is both old-fashioned and worrying. If you want to make things worse, rub the gums with honey. Or let the child be spoiled, which is great advice if you happen to be related to a duke. If nothing else works, one idea is to put the baby in a pram next to an open window, hoping the breeze will help. Teething isn't just hard on the baby. The rest of the family is always on the lookout for the baby, walking carefully around the nursery and listening out for the first noise. Older brothers and sisters are brought in to entertain the audience, with puppet shows and silly attempts at comedy. The baby doesn't like this and just wants to chew on the hem of their pin. When the baby's teeth finally start to appear, there is a short celebration. Parents are happy. Nannies pour themselves a glass of sherry to celebrate, and the baby, now armed with new teeth, starts biting everyone. Another Victorian habit has survived, thanks to people's determination and ingenuity, and because people didn't pay much attention to the instructions on how to take it. Looking back, you realize that teething in the Victorian age was about more than just growing teeth. It was about building the kind of resilience you'd need for a lifetime of problems, such as lead paint, curtains dyed with arsenic, and breakfast consisting entirely of GRL. If you made it through your first year without accidentally numbing your tongue permanently, you are clearly destined for great things, or at the very least for a very strong cup of tea. Sometimes you're taken out into the countryside for exercise, wearing lots of layers and not allowed to touch anything interesting. Nature is good for your education, but only if you look at it from a safe, clean distance. A Victorian nature walk is not so much an adventure as it is a moving lesson in caution. The adults, with walking sticks and baskets and feeling very nervous, heard you and your brothers and sisters at the front door. They had their hats on and their gloves up to their elbows. If you complain about the weather, people will tell you the same old thing. There's no such thing as bad weather, only people who are not used to it. You might have hoped for a fun walk through the countryside, but instead you're being led down the lane like a duckling in a dirty hat. As you walk along, Nanny looks carefully for danger, puddles, low branches, and, most of all, stray dogs. You might want to run into a hedge, but you'll just get a stern look and a lecture on how you could catch all sorts of nasty things from touching wild plants. You can admire the flowers, but only from a distance and only after saying their Latin names. If you try to pick a butterfly, you will get into trouble. The approved activities include pointing at clouds, politely noting the shapes of various leaves, and asking questions that can be answered with a disapproving look. Bird song is wonderful to listen to, but it's never meant to be copied. Climbing trees is not an option. So is running, shouting, or doing anything else that might make a passing vicer notice you. Your greatest hope is to be allowed to sketch a daffodil or collect a perfectly clean stone, both of which will later be taken away, dusted, and possibly boiled just to be safe. Despite these restrictions, Victorian outdoor adventures have an undeniable charm. The countryside is made up of meadows, hedges, and woodlands. The air smells of new grass and cows far away. Even when it's raining, you still feel curious. Every so often, you see something exciting like a rabbit's tail, a bunch of wild berries, or a fox far away running away before anyone can tell you a moral story about being sneaky. Every trip is a chance to learn more. You might have to say poetry about nature or draw an acorn really well. You'll be asked about different cloud types and how to address a gardener. If you show any enthusiasm, an adult will remind you that true appreciation of nature is about being calm and thoughtful. I mean, please stop pretending to enjoy yourself. If you're very lucky, you might be able to walk in a shallow river, but only after checking the risks and putting on lots of clothes. If you fell in, you would just stay afloat until someone came to rescue you with an umbrella. You return home muddy, but only in your dreams. The real dirt is removed by vigorous brushing and using a boot scraper. But some children rebel. A quick dash behind a bush, a secret handful of snails, or a forbidden game of who can jump the furthest when the adults aren't looking. These are the things that people used to talk about a lot in Victorian times. You learn to treasure every moment of freedom, every secret puff of a dandelion, every grass stain you can hide until laundry day. The Victorian Nature Walk is a bit of a contradiction. You are out in the world, but you still have to follow the rules of etiquette and dress smartly. But even through the layers, you can see the wildness that lives just beyond the lane. Remember that being a kid is about more than just following the rules. It's about finding adventure, even when you're not supposed to. The Victorians loved a good ghost story. As a child, you were scared of everything from jack-o'-lanterns to miasmas. If you cough and no one can say why, people will say it's because of a ghost nearby. They'll say you need to keep your soul clean. The nursery is filled with whispers and shadows. Every creak in the floorboards, every flicker of candlelight is a chance for someone, usually an older brother or sister or a particularly naughty uncle, to say that the house is haunted. People are always telling me never to whistle indoors. It makes ghosts appear. So, if you see a mirror at night, make a cross with your fingers before you go past it. That's where ghosts come in. And to avoid opening windows after dark, so that the miasmas or something even worse can't get in. If you sneeze 3 times in a row, someone is guaranteed to make the sign of the cross and push a piece of bread into your hand just in case. Superstition was a big part of life for children in Victorian times. If you drop a fork when you're eating, it means a visitor is coming, maybe a ghost. It's definitely someone with muddy boots. Spilling salt is a very bad thing. You must immediately throw a pinch over your left shoulder to blind the devil. Don't ever step over a broom, or you'll never get married. If a black cat crosses your path, you're supposed to turn around, go home, and think carefully about the decisions you've made in life so far. Bedtime is when things get really scary. The stories begin. Stories of haunted attics, restless spirits, and vengeful ghosts who don't like children who giggle after sunset. You lie awake, your heart beating quickly, watching the shadows move across the wallpaper, which is green like arsenic. You are sure that every cold breeze is the breath of something from another world. Thunderstorms turn into gothic dramas. The howling wind must be the wail of the restless dead. And if the clock strikes 13, it's best not to say anything. In Victorian times, guilt and fear often went hand in hand. If you do something wrong, like stealing a jam tart or leaving muddy footprints on the stairner, you will definitely be punished. Ghosts, you're told, like to haunt people who are naughty, lazy, or disrespectful. You become very good at saying sorry and admitting when you have done something wrong, just in case a ghost is watching and making notes for some kind of evil purpose. People worry a lot more about supernatural things during the holidays. At Halloween, people carve pumpkins to scare away bad spirits that are said to walk the earth on All Hallows Eve. On Christmas Eve, you get together to listen to ghost stories by candlelight. You're not just feeling cold, you're also nervous because you might actually see Great Uncle Frederick in the doorway, ready for a second helping of pudding. Even everyday tasks are affected by a network of signs and symbols. You must stir the Christmas pudding clockwise to bring good luck. Don't put anything in an empty cradle. It invites tragedy. If you find a spider in your shoe, some people say it's good luck, while others say it's a sign you need new shoes. And if you ever dream of losing teeth, don't mention it before breakfast or the whole family will be in black by spring. But even though there's a lot of fear, there's also a strange comfort in superstition. It makes sense of things that can't be explained, like cold rooms, rashes, and why the nursery always feels colder after sunset. You whisper protective magic, avoid ladders, and look carefully for signs, hoping to grow up without drawing the attention of ghosts. Eventually, you become used to the feeling of something strange happening at night. Every shadow tells a story. If you itch and can't find a reason for it, it could be a warning from the other side. Victorian superstitions may make you scared, but they also made your childhood exciting, full of rituals, and taught you to respect salt shakers. So, you get into bed, say your prayers, and tell yourself that as long as you're not worried about your soul and you got your bread, you'll probably make it through the night, even if there are ghosts. Puberty arrives out of the blue, and there's no explanation for it. Victorian parents would just ignore it, leaving you to discover the horrors of puberty on your own, with only a medical encyclopedia and scary stories from your older cousin to help you. One day, you're playing marbles in the nursery, and the next you're sent upstairs to rest for a very long time. Your body starts to show you that it's not working well. You grow in places where you're not supposed to, your body makes noises when you don't mean to, and you suddenly notice your elbows. You might get spots overnight, your hair might do unpredictable things, and you might suddenly, for no reason at all, be taller than your mother and more awkward than a calf on ice. The official Victorian response is to say nothing at all. The word puberty is never used. If you ask your parents what's happening to you, they send you to the family library where the medical book has helpful but slightly worrying pictures and advice like being brave, not reading too much, and taking cold baths every day. The book's chapter on the change is 3 pages long, and 2 of these are taken up with a list of symptoms that might be signs of the change. These symptoms include unusual dreams, secret thoughts, and fits of giggling. Practical advice is given in warnings that are hard to understand. Sit up straight. Your father says that you're getting stout. Your mom always used to say that eating too much cheese at dinner will make you sleepy. Nobody explains what kind of ideas there are. If you complain of new aches, you're given a tonic with a name like Dr. Fortitude's Invigorating Solution, which tastes like nail polish remover and is probably 40% gin. Girls are given a confusing introduction to Victorian modesty. The day you get your first packet of blue ribbons is the day you know something strange is happening. If you ask your mother, she just blushes and says you should pray more. The women in the family are quiet and mysterious, and they give advice like never sit on cold steps and don't run after tea. If you faint in public, everyone nods knowingly and changes the subject. For boys, the change to manhood is equally mysterious and much more itchy. Then, all of a sudden, you're expected to spend hours at cricket, recite poetry like it's your job, and stop climbing trees, even though you're really keen to do more of it. Older cousins tell you scary stories about what might happen, like sudden whiskers, wrestling behind the stables, and needing to carry a handkerchief for emergencies. Your skin feels bad and your voice sounds strange. You start to notice other people, girls, boys, and the baker's apprentice. Sometimes all at once. Sometimes with the shocking intensity of a 3-volume romance novel. According to the family manual, courtship should take place at a distance, by letter, and ideally with at least 4 chaperones and a dog. You have a crush on someone, but it's too embarrassing to tell anyone. You only tell your diary and maybe your family dog. The most difficult thing is dealing with emotions. Victorian children are taught to keep their feelings to themselves, but as they enter adolescence, they experience a surge of new sensations. You feel rage, joy, embarrassment, and fear all at the same time. You're expected to deal with these problems calmly and to take a walk to calm down now and again. You deal with things in the traditional Victorian way, bottling everything up, writing a sad poem, and sighing a lot. In the end, you come out of it feeling exhausted, but with a new understanding of how important it is to value calm places and to be able to look calm even if you're actually panicking on the inside. You remember being a teenager in Victorian times as a time of mystery, confusion, and very strong tea. When you finally become an adult, you understand why everyone pretends not to notice what's going on with the teenagers. Some things from that time are better not talked about. Bedtime means a quick prayer, a story about how being too proud can be dangerous, and maybe a sleeping pill. The house is cold, the gas lamps hiss, and you drift off, happy to have survived another day, at least until the next strange rash appears. The evening routine in a Victorian home was a time to relax, but not in the way we relax today. There is no soft background noise, no stories of kind bears and magical forests. Instead, you kneel at your iron-framed bed and pray quickly so that you don't get cut by the chill blades, and so that your words are serious enough to ward off any spirits that might be listening from the wardrobe. The nursery is cold, the fire is long gone out, and your nightshirt is 2 sizes too big. I got this from a cousin. Apparently, there's a story going around that he survived for months just by wearing enough flannel. After prayer, it's bedtime story time, but story is a big word. Most nights, it's a story about what is right and wrong, told quietly by a carer or older brother or sister. These stories are about being too proud, being too greedy, or what can happen to children who don't listen. The message is always the same. Do the right thing, and you will be rewarded. If you misbehave, you will be punished quickly and in a funny way. You might hear stories like the boy who ran indoors and was struck by lightning, or the girl who forgot her manners and was quickly taken by a stalker. Don't worry. If your parents are feeling particularly modern, they might offer a book, usually Pilgrim's Progress or some other less scary book from the family shelf of improving literature. You hold your book under the scratchy blankets and try not to think about the wallpaper peeling in the moonlight or the odd smell of camphor drifting from the medicine chest. The house is full of noises. The floorboards creak, the wind rattles the window, and someone coughs in a way that suggests they've just seen a ghost, or maybe the family cat. If you're feeling restless or just really unlucky, you can always have a sleep. Victorian pharmacology is, to put it simply, very enthusiastic. A spoonful of syrup promising to help you sleep, but which actually contains enough opium to make a grown bear sleepy for a week. If you protest, you're reminded that your Aunt Belinda took it nightly and lived to the impressive age of 34. The first taste is a little like licorice, nightmares, and regret. You're drifting in and out of consciousness, and you're grateful to be spared the full noise of the house's nocturnal symphony. Bedtime doesn't have to be scary. There are small things that make life better, like the soft thump of a sibling's foot from the next bed, the distant noise of a late-night carriage, and the warm feeling of being together. You make secret plans for tomorrow, promising daring escapes and extra marmalade, but Nanny's warning shushes you. You lie awake for a while, looking at the shadows on the ceiling and thinking about what will happen the next day. A new rash, or a strange spot that will need 3 kinds of ointment and a stern warning about the dangers of drafts. You are not alone. The nursery is full of soft sounds. The sound of a mouse, the wind moving leaves, and the family dog snoring gently next to the fire. Even the house seems to relax a bit, as if it is happy that everyone is safely in bed. In the end, I fall asleep. It's not gentle, but total. It was caused by being very tired, warnings from storybooks, and just the right amount of medicine to help you sleep. You dream of strange adventures, haunted nurseries, and endless bowls of glop. If you're lucky, you wake up in the morning a bit stiff and itchy, but ready to face another day in the strange and interesting world of Victorian childhood. As you blink away sleep, you remember that surviving bedtime is its own kind of victory. In the Victorian era, potty training was more about public embarrassment and using lots of toilet paper. It had less to do with stickers and positive reinforcement. Your personal chamber pot is decorated with pictures of flowers, or if you're unlucky, moral warnings. There's no flushing, only a quick trip to the backyard to use the toilet, which is included in the job of the person who empties the bins. You learn quickly. Accidents mean lectures, and missing the pot is something you should keep to yourself until the next housemaid's day off. For a Victorian child, the chamber pot was both a constant necessity and a way of teaching humility. It might be hiding under the bed or in a special space behind the nursery screen. It's always close by, but there's always a chance an adult will find it at the worst possible moment. Some are painted with kind words. Some of the decorations are very cute, like roses and cherubs, but others are more serious. Keeping things clean is important, and it's good to think carefully before you act. The message is clear. This is a matter of ethics, not biology. You will learn about how to behave in the bathroom from a young age. Nanny or mother give a speech about how to behave, using phrases like "don't make a spectacle of yourself" and "leave on time." You're taught to ask politely, to avoid rushing, and above all, to never discuss your business at the breakfast table. If you do, people will be very shocked and will probably get a punishment like sitting on a special chair and thinking about their actions. The act itself is dangerous. The chamber pot is not big, it is not steady, and it moves around a lot at the most important moment. The stakes are high. If it works, it's a thumbs up. If something goes wrong, it's important to fix it quickly and make it seem like it's the fault of a sibling or the family dog. The cleaners mutter as they empty the toilet every morning, while the man who empties the rubbish arrives looking weak. His cart rattles through the alley. It shows what happens when Victorian plumbing stops at the kitchen sink. Potty training is common knowledge in a way that children today can only imagine. Older brothers and sisters love to share scary stories about the things they got wrong when they were young, or make up new ones to teach you a lesson. Do you remember when Cousin Edmund ate cold cabbage for a week after missing the pot? He even apologized to the whole household, including the cat. These stories are designed to make you scared and make you watch out at all times. Accidents are bound to happen, and we learn from them. There are no cheerful try again stickers, just the quick efficiency of Victorian discipline. A change of linen, a warning look, and a quiet reference to slippery slopes and moral decay. Your mistakes are looked at closely in a quiet but thorough way until you decide to never make them again, even if that means wading through a whole night of howling wind and creaking floorboards. If something goes wrong, like a tipped pot, a late-night mishap, or, heaven forbid, a mistaken chamber in the dark, the consequences are immediate. Sheets are stripped, windows flung open, and vinegar splashed liberally. Nanny talks a lot about how important it is to be disciplined and to control your bladder. You decide not to drink any liquids after dinner and start thinking about how you can get out of the situation if you need to at midnight. For many people, the worst thing is the eventual move to the outdoor toilet. This is a journey that you can do in all weathers. You need to bring a lantern, a big shawl, and you need to be very determined. The privy is cold, windy, and full of secrets, spiders, the sound of dripping water, and a smell that could remove wallpaper. People say this helps build character. It's definitely memorable, but you get used to it. You learn to be careful, to be wise, and to run away quickly if you need to. The chamber pot was a normal part of life in Victorian times. It was a symbol of the people's ingenuity, the ability to create new ideas, and resilience, the ability to cope with difficult situations. It also shows that people in the Victorian era believed that being moral could be encouraged, and that being good was something that had to be enforced one uncomfortable trip at a time. You survive Victorian potty training by being careful, modest, and respectful of porcelain. In a world without plumbing, you do what you can to get by, and hopefully you won't have to deal with cabbage-based punishment for a while. Dressing up in Victorian times is a real workout. No matter how old you are, the number of buttons, buckles, and shoelaces on a pair of trousers is very complicated. Young girls wrestle with mini corsets. Boys get strangled by tight collars. Everyone must wear at least 3 layers of clothing, no matter what the weather is like. Nothing says freedom like wearing a wool coat that makes you sweat in July while your mom worries about your shoelaces not being tied right. Your day doesn't start with a gentle stretch, but with the clear sound of Nanny throwing open the curtains and loudly saying that being lazy makes you get wrinkles and ruin. Before you can say anything, the daily battle with clothing begins. All of your clothes are piled up at the end of your bed, like a tower. This tower might include petticoats, chemises, drawers, stockings, garters, undershirts, and, if you're especially unlucky, a sailor suit that at least 3 adults need to help you put on. For girls, the first problem is always the corset, or as it's known in the family, the embrace of discipline. A child's corset is meant to encourage perfect posture, but it can also make children feel unhappy. Nanny pulls the laces with the skill of a competitive sailor, pulling until you feel taller, thinner, and much less able to breathe. If you complain, you're reminded that even Queen Victoria herself wore tighter corsets. And look how well she turned out. Boys, meanwhile, have to deal with the collar, which is stiff and upright, and looks like something out of a medieval torture device. Every morning, your mother stands you in front of the mirror, pulls the collar up to your chin, and checks how you look, like a sculptor preparing marble for a public display. If you try to loosen it, the person will look at you angrily and say that a droopy collar is a sign of immorality. You can practice good posture by balancing a book on your head, while Nanny checks your cuffs for any folding or signs of a careless lifestyle. Don't just take our word for it. Try layering for yourself. It's a special and important event. No matter the season or the location, children are always dressed in wool, flannel, and sometimes velvet. This is because children are delicate and must be kept warm at all times. This is a strange belief, especially when you're sweating heavily by midday and quietly hoping for a strong breeze or a fainting spell. You are warned never to remove a layer, otherwise you might catch a cold and make the household feel ashamed. Dressing is so tiring that it is almost like exercising in the morning. Socks go down, garters come undone, and buttons disappear at the most unexpected moments. Ribbons get tangled, sashes get lost, and the family dog, pretending to help, takes your best glove and hides it in the garden. By the time you finish getting dressed, you're more nervous than you are relaxed. You're not sure whether you should go outside or just go back to bed or rest. Accidents happen. Someone will get their sash caught on a door handle or rip a petticoat while trying to sit down, which is dangerous. Popping a button is seen as a big deal, and people notice. This leads to an unexpected repair session, which also teaches us a lesson in humility. Mothers see every loose thread in their clothes and see every wardrobe malfunction as an opportunity to improve their moral values. It's better to be safe than sorry. Of course, special occasions can be dangerous. Lace collars with tiny hooks, hats pinned to your head with an optimism that is almost cruel, and shoes so tight they might as well have been made for a different species. You sit for the family portrait feeling very uncomfortable and itching, and you try to smile as if you were very serious like people did in the Victorian era. But through the sweat, the pinches, and the endless scolding, you become more agile, patient, and you learn to really appreciate those moments spent barefoot and unsupervised. By the time it gets dark, you take off your layers, feel relieved, amazed that you have survived, and fall asleep. You are haunted by the sound of your mother's petticoats rustling and the click of her mending scissors. It's always ready for tomorrow's battle of the best outfits. Dressing up in Victorian times is a real workout. No matter how old you are, there are always lots of buttons, buckles, and shoelaces on clothes, and they can all be very complicated. Young girls wrestle with mini corsets. Boys get strangled by tight collars, and everyone has to wear at least 3 layers of clothing, no matter what the weather is like. Nothing says freedom like wearing a wool coat that makes you sweat in July while your mom worries about your shoelaces not being tied right. The morning doesn't start with a yawn, it starts with a battle cry. Nanny opens the curtains. The cold air rushes in, reminding you that Victorian families didn't have central heating. Your clothes are tidily stacked in a complicated, scary pile. Petticoats, drawers, undershirts, stockings, garters, chemises, coats, shirts, and if you're particularly unlucky, a sailor suit with a neckerchief that has only ever been tied properly once by a great aunt who is now dead. For girls, the first problem is the corset. Yes, this is even true for children. The stays are meant to train your posture and soul. Nanny laced up my shoes with great enthusiasm, as if she was trying to catch a wild boar. The feeling is less supportive and more restrictive, designed to make you look like a lady and make it hard for you to breathe properly. They can only move by gliding, shuffling, or sometimes collapsing onto a fainting couch. Boys, meanwhile, have to deal with stiff collars that could be used as emergency splints and shoes that are so hard to get off that you need 2 adults, a boot jack, and a prayer to remove them. In the morning, you practice good posture by balancing books on your head, while Nanny checks that your cuffs are folded neatly. If you think you're clever by loosening a button, be careful. Mothers can spot and fix even the tiniest differences at 20 paces. You should layer up, and you should layer up well. Whatever the season or whether you're indoors or out, you'll be cozy in a cocoon of wool, flannel, or for those who like to push the limits, velvet. Grown-ups often say that children are naturally fragile and need to be protected all the time. This is a strange thing to say in July, when you're all wet from sweat, itching at woolly clothes, and quietly thinking about the chances of passing out before breakfast. Dressing is so tiring that it counts as exercise. Socks sag, garters snap, and buttons seem designed to come undone at the worst possible moment. Ribbons get tangled, laces become knotted, and the family dog, which is supposed to be helping, runs off with your second best glove. By the time you've got all your clothes on, you're not sure whether to go outside or just lie down and rest. But accidents happen. Someone might trip over a long hem or get a sleeve stuck in a door. If you rip your petticoat or lose a button before lunch, your mother will make you sit down and talk about it. She will make you learn from any problem, no matter how small. People who like to rebel dream of having less clothes, secretly planning to accidentally leave a few items behind when they do their laundry. Special occasions can be difficult. Lace collars with tiny hooks are made to fold according to the laws of Ukrainian geometry, and hats are pinned to your head with a force usually used for scientific experiments. If a child's bonnet is crooked, their sash is uneven, or their boots are muddy from playing, they will be in trouble. But you survive, and you get stronger and fitter. You also learn to sit very still. You learn to appreciate the simple things, like a loosened ribbon, a moment without shoes, or the sweet rebellion of untucked shirt tails. You start to understand why adults drink so much tea and why family portraits always look a bit worried. In the end, Victorian children's clothes were about discipline as well as decency. You're wrapped in tradition, practicality, and just a little bit of paranoia, protected against the world, the weather, and the possibility of getting into bad habits. When you finally peel off your last layer at night, you've earned your sleep, your stripes, and maybe, if you're lucky, a single night with buttons left undone. So, as you drift off to sleep tonight, tucked into your clean, quiet bed with central heating and a comfortable mattress, take a moment to think about the children of the Victorian era and the parents who were just doing their best with a handbook full of superstition, questionable science, and pure anxiety. You have survived the nursery Girel, the nursery rules, and more household toxins than you could possibly imagine. You went through things like lead paint, teething syrups that could make a pony sleep, and family portraits that were so scary they would make nightmares. And if you made it to adulthood, you did it with at least 3 moral lessons, a collection of rashes, and a deep suspicion of all things cabbage. Let's be honest, Victorian parents might have had good intentions, but their methods were strange, extreme, and sometimes even illegal. But somehow, despite all the discipline, questionable medicine, and layers of wool and underwear, families stayed together. Children grew up strong, creative, and with survival skills that would surprise a modern survival expert. Tonight, as you listen to the soft hum of your fan, you can quietly thank your ancestors for surviving a time when there was no cod liver oil and when children sometimes had to play in the street. History can be cruel and silly, but it also shows that people are stubborn, hopeful, and always find new ways to get through the day. So relax, breathe easily, and forget your small modern worries. There's no need to worry because there's no arsenic in the medicine cabinet and nobody's forcing you to eat your liver pudding. The present is comfortable, safe, and the actions of the past were heroically silly. Good night, and I hope you have nice dreams. Good night.